Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me on Business This Week on ITV. I am Blessing Aichi. Today, our discussion will be on public relations and how it impacts business. Before we do that, as always, let's take a look on business activities for the week. Business Roundup, our first story says CBN fixes October for launch of infrastructure fund. The Central Bank of Nigeria has announced that the 15 trillion naira infrastructure fund would boost funding for capital projects, and it will be launched in October. The CBN Governor, Gordon Emefiele, disclosed this in Abuja at the annual Banking and Finance Conference organized by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. He said that the project, which was conceptualized by the CBN alongside African Finance Corporation and the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, will help to address the challenge of infrastructure deficit in the country. He explained that Infracore would enable the use of mostly private capital to support infrastructure investment that will have a multiplier effect on growth across critical sectors. The CBN governor also noted that Nigerian banks have become not only strong and resilient, but have also carved a good niche in the world. To consolidate on the growth and resilience of Nigerian banks in the last decade, he said that the central bank will, in the next 12 months, be establishing the Nigerian International Finance Center. The NIFC, according to him, will act as an international gateway for capital and investments driven by technology and payment system infrastructure. He said the NIFC will be a 24/7 financial center that will complement London, New York, and Singapore financial centers and enable an acceleration of Nigeria's homegrown initiatives such as the Infracore PLC. Emefiele explained further that the NIFC will take advantage of existing laws such as the BOFIA 2020, NEPSA, and other CBN regulations to create a fully global investment and financial hub where monies, ideas, and technology will move freely without hindrance. Moving on to our next story, the federal government has said that it is targeting an increase in e-commerce trading from the current market value of $13 billion to about $75 billion by 2025. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Evelyn Ngige, who discussed this in Abuja at the second National E-Commerce Roundtable organized by the ministry, noted that e-commerce had grown from 14% in 2019 to 17% in 2020. Ngige, who was represented by the Director, Commodities and Export Department, Suleiman Audu, said the encouraging trend that attracted the entrance of payment service providers in the e-commerce market. According to her, the second edition of the e-commerce roundtable session will consolidate the achievements of the first session and align discussions to current realities, especially in the impact of COVID-19. She said the advent of the pandemic had turned global attention to the importance of e-commerce and the conduct of businesses around the world. Ngige said the event was expected to highlight critical issues that require the attention of relevant stakeholders in order to develop a strategic framework that would improve the performance of the e-commerce sector in Nigeria. She said in view of the cross-cutting nature of e-commerce, the ministry was open to any form of collaboration that would support the development of the e-commerce ecosystem in Nigeria. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has cut the monetary policy rate MPR from 12.5% to 11.5%, an indication of a reduction in the cost of funds by 100 basis points. The CBN governor, Mr. Gordon Emefiele, disclosed this while presenting the decisions of the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, after its two-day meeting in Abuja yesterday. However, the committee retained the cash reserve ratio and liquidity ratio at 27.5% and 30% respectively. Explaining the reasons for the cut, Emefiele said after the consideration of the three policy options, members were of the opinion that the option will complement the bank's commitment to sustain the trajectory of the economic recovery and reduce the negative impact of COVID-19. In addition, the liquidity injections are expected to stimulate credit expansion to the critically impacted sectors of the economy and offer impetus for output growth and economic recovery. On the rise in inflation, Emefiele noted that so far, evidence has not linked the rise in inflation to monetary factors, but rather evidence suggested non-monetary factors as the overwhelming reasons accounting for the inflationary pressure. In the face of the global economic challenges, the CBN stressed the urgent need for a combination of broad-based monetary and fiscal policy measures to curb the rise in inflation and contraction in output growth. And at the parallel exchange markets today, the Naira currently exchanges to the US dollar at 565 Naira to $1, 775 Naira to £1 sterling, and 655 Naira to €1. And that's its own business roundup. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll be talking public relations. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. So now let's talk about public relations and its role in business success. I'm joined by a business analyst and someone who's into public relations is Tony Amachunu. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Listen.
Did I do well pronouncing your name?
Yeah,
Okay, so nice having you here, Tony.
thank you.
Let's talk about public relations. In this part of the world, we don't see much of PR done. Is it that people don't want to do PR or they actually don't understand PR? But let me answer myself because I'm thinking they don't understand PR. So let's know what public relations is.
Yeah, basically, you're right by saying that a lot of businesses don't put much investments into PR. Most companies actually try to focus on selling.
Okay.
They try to focus on advertising, get people to know their products and what they do, the services they offer, and all that. But beyond that is PR. PR has to do with the way your customers, your clients perceive you, the way they view you, the way they see you, the way they how do they know you? Who are you to them?
Okay.
Do they own your product? Are they loyal to you? So all that is boxed inside PR.
Okay, so how would a business, for instance, do PR? Who is to do PR for the business, or can the business by itself handle public relations?
Yeah, PR has to do with, like I said, managing impression from the clients. There are big organizations, a few of them in Benin, mostly clustered around Lagos and Abuja, Port Harcourt, and the other big cities that, yes, can afford to have a full public relations department. And so in that case, they have a fully functional PR unit that handles everything that has to do with their PR engagements. Yeah, but for smaller businesses, there are PR firms that they could get to engage to handle their public image and public relations for them. Okay,
you talked about advertising and some aspects of PR, which people just know, and then, but the most common of them is advertising. People just want to do advertising. What other forms can PR come in? What are the other aspects of public relations?
Yeah, at the core of public relations is your image. While advertisement basically talks about throwing the knowledge of your product out there, PR does more beyond selling your product. PR sells you, sells the organization, it sells the entity, so that people don't just see you by your products, but they see you for who you are. How do you impact their life? What are the things, what are the plans, what are the programs you have in place to help make things better for them? So that's where PR comes in. So it's way beyond advertising.
So if it's way beyond advertising, then what can it be apart from advertising? If I own a business, for instance, and I want to do public relations, what should I do besides advertising?
Okay, now beyond advertising, you have to engage your clients. You need to know your clients. You need to get involved with them as know who they are.
Okay.
There are a lot of PR stunts that organizations carry out. Some of them could involve a bit of CSR, corporate social responsibilities,
okay.
Getting to give back to the people,
okay.
and then that way try to build some form of loyalty, not just to your product, but to your brand, to your identity. And so it's just beyond selling the product to them, but buying into their lives,
okay.
getting them to build some level of loyalty to you. So
okay.
So it goes beyond, it's just way beyond that, what advertisement is.
Okay, so who can do PR? Who can do PR, or what kind of business can do PR? Are there certain kinds of businesses that need public relations,
okay.
or is something every business needs?
Every business, as long as you sell, as long as you are a customer-facing business, you have to do some form of PR, and that's because PR in itself builds loyalty to you. So you see that there are some banks, for instance,
okay.
Try to give back to the society by some of them organizing competitions where children can win stuff, you know, parents can win full school fee. You see stuff about people winning salary for life and
okay.
all those kind of stuff. Is those are ways these organizations are giving back to the society and try to get the society to feel the impact of their existence, the impact of their business. So it's not limited to big companies alone. Small companies can also do PR.
At their level?
At their level, yes.
Okay.
Say for instance, you're doing your business along a street.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with you once in a while on a Saturday morning coming out with your staff and then doing some form of cleanup, you know, on the street, make the street a bit neater, try to do some bit of, I'll create some bit of awareness, maybe about COVID, maybe about any health challenges that could be around. You know, this way the people feel you beyond the product you sell to them. They see you as being interested in their lives. Yeah. Okay.
Now, but these days we see that not just companies do PR, individuals who's got maybe a huge profile also engage in PR. What benefit is that to them?
Yeah, you know, most of these individuals are probably celebrities, you know, social media influencers. They thrive in their numbers, the number of followers, the number of people that celebrate them, and what better way? Since they're already having one-on-one engagements with the people, yes. So doing the PR helps them to get the people to love them the more, you know, to like them the more, and drive more traffic to whatever platforms they operate. Okay.
Now, at the beginning, we talked about who's to do PR. Can the company do it by itself, or should it get someone else or another firm? Meaning that a firm could have as its business managing public relations for others. Yeah. Now, how's that going in Nigeria?
Yeah, PR is a big business in Nigeria because it's a market that is not fully explored. Okay. So the percentage of businesses that are fully engaging PR firms compared to those that are not, the distance is way apart. So it's an aspect of business that is ripe, and a lot of small PR companies are coming up and they're doing very, very well, especially those that have been able to establish themselves in the market, those that have been able to create track records for themselves. You know, and then of course we're having more and more interests. International businesses are coming in, and when they're coming like that, they want someone that understands the streets. They want companies that understand the people, they understand the culture, they understand how they operate, how they think, what's their perspective, what's the frequency of their thoughts and all that. So they want to engage PR firms. So yeah, it's a very lucrative business, and there are not so many big PR firms, as it were, in Nigeria right now.
Why is that?
Yeah, that's because just like tech, as it were, businesses are not fully adopting, embracing it. They are more profit-driven than trying to manage image and perception. So before now, there are a lot of companies did not even fully adopt tech. as it were, incorporating tech into their business. So we're evolving in that phase. So also in the world of PR, we are also gradually evolving as a country. So that's where we are.
Okay. So talking about perception, what are the wrong perceptions in your experience that you found to be common in Nigeria that works against the success of the PR business?
Yeah, most times customers just feel that once you're trying to do PR, you're trying to get their money.
Okay.
You're trying to get them to like your product and deceive them into buying your product. So that's the perception a lot of people have. But it's wrong, because before a company gets into doing PR, it means to a large extent they already have their foot in the market.
Okay.
So somehow they're actually taking a portion of their profits and giving it back to the society. Now, probably because in the past a lot of people have been wounded by these handshakes, so they try to let's be careful.
Cautious, okay.
They're just so conscious of these PR stunts, so they just want to take what you're giving and then slide away gradually.
Okay.
So it's a wrong perception. When companies engage in PR, they're actually trying to give back. They're actually trying to make an impact on the society that has given them, helped them to grow to the extent they are.
Okay, now that's for the company whose PR is being managed.
Yes.
Now for the company offering the service of managing public relations, what are the perceptions that the customer, who in this case may be another business or an individual, what are the perceptions that they have?
A lot of times they feel we can do it ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they right?
Most often than not, they are wrong.
Okay.
They are wrong, and that's because there's a bit of technicality in managing people's perception.
Okay.
It's not a straight-jacketed plan that you could just sit at point A and plot your graph to point Z.
Okay.
So there are rooms for pivoting. When you're trying to execute a certain plan, a certain strategy, and it's not working, you need a very good and smart PR manager to understand at this point we need to pivot this idea, we need to change, we need to make this tweak to this plan, so we don't, at the end of the day, shoot ourselves in the leg. So if the company is just trying to get there in the market themselves, they may end up damaging their image than doing good to their image.
Okay. Now, let's take it off from damaging their image. Is there a right time to do PR, or PR should become necessary when your image is damaged?
PR is necessary at every point in time.
At every point in time.
Yeah, because whether your image is damaged, whether your image is right, in fact, there's no better time than when your image is right.
Okay.
Because at that point, you have all the celebrations, all the accolades are coming to you.
Okay.
So no better time to say thank you to the people that are giving you those accolades.
Okay.
And if you already have a damaged image, then at that point, you really need to bring in an expert in the field to help you navigate that muddy water. Okay,
but if it's better to start even before you have an issue, a problem that needs you to launder your image, why then do businesses wait, people wait for when there's a problem and then you start looking for a PR expert to help you clean up the mess?
Like I said, because they are always focused on profits.
Okay.
Yeah, most times they ask themselves, if I do this PR, what is the
gain?
What's the commercial viability of this PR activity I want to do? What do I stand to gain? How much is my sales going to increase? How much is my profits going to increase? So if they are not able to establish a clear commercial viability for that particular PR activity, they will want to put it on the back burner and focus more on advertising and selling their product and making more profit. So because of that focus, a lot of times they wait until something is about to go out of hand or already gone out of hand. Then they begin to scamper and look for help.
Wow. Well, let's take a break. When we return, we'll talk about the dangers of not doing PR at all. Whether when you have it's going smooth for you or when your business is damaged. What are the dangers of neglecting PR as a business person or as an individual? We'll talk about that after this break.
No, I'm not
All
gonna
right,
snap
thank
on
you for staying tuned. I've been joined by another PR expert, Tony Abulu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. So, I want to start from here for you. What made you go into public relations?
A difficult question to answer. Reason is, okay, I'd been in the media for years.
Yes.
Radio, television, and I was coming up. And usually when you come from such background, you want to know which area of practice do you go into when you go into private life. And usually the start seems to be advertising.
Okay.
And then you go into advertising, and I was thinking to do a little bit of that in Benin. I was thinking to go to Lagos. Of course, I had a different advice by somebody who is from the West, a very close friend, that I should stay here and grow. Maybe it makes sense, in the sense that if you go to Lagos, you might be competing with the big sharks, and you may not be able to.
You may get swallowed up.
Swallowed up, yes. And it will take you years even to become who you think you are. But then again, in terms of practice, over the years, you discover that what can make you sustained in terms of media practice, if you wanted to do something within the media, you don't own a broadcast station, you don't own a printing press, and so then we're not blogging, there were no websites when we came out, so you were not going into all of that. You now discover that public relations becomes the practice. One, because in Benin City, how many manufacturers are there? How many people are doing big business that you say you want to advertise? So advertising communication becomes a bit difficult. So PR is a big umbrella that covers both advertising and so many modes of communication. And so you find that you are into public relations practice, and you are there doing communication business in terms of the small organizations and the big organizations. And there's so many ways in which you do it, so many lines of business that you do in terms of communicating the business. But bottom line, you're communicating, and I'm sure my good friend has also mentioned that, you're communicating between the organization or the individual, or between the brand and its publics. And we always talk about the publics. And in that business of creating goodwill and good rapport, you're creating image and creating a brand. And you find that you can do that in so many ways, even in a small city like Benin.
Now, doing public relations in a small city like Benin, every business starts with the intent to provide solution to a problem. When you went into public relations, what was the problem you saw with businesses in Benin City that you chose to solve by providing public relations service?
It's like a book written by Northrop Parkinson, which is titled The Need to Communicate. And every business, no matter how big, no matter how small, you do need to communicate. And so you found that you needed to communicate. Every single entity that was in business that needed to reach its publics. Because if you have a product that you want to put out, you have a service to put out. And like you were saying before the break, sometimes you have a bad image to deal with.
Yes.
And when you have that bad image, you need to work it out and work your way out. And of course, that is one of the things you study in public relations, which is crisis management. The toughest thing, it's like what Uniben is going through now. It is in a crisis mode. And it requires the best and efficient public relations to communicate this crisis out. It's in the interest of the Vice Chancellor, it's in the interest even of the PR department, it's in the interest of the students, it's in the interest of the university itself to communicate in this moment of crisis. So this is where you now discover that this is the moment of public relations.
Now taking it off from where you left, you just talked about University of Benin. That's an institution, a federal government-owned institution that provides education to people. Now, we've been talking about public relations for businesses, for individuals. So does that mean that it is not just the person who sells, who does his own private business, or the private companies that needs public relations? Tony?
Yeah, it's actually everyone and every business, every kind of business. Business is always business, whether your business is for profit or it's not for profit.
Including government.
Yeah, including governments and
enterprises
and full NGOs, institutions and all. So including even governments itself requires a bit of image management and perception management, and that's where the PR experts come in. Because as long as you have interactions with people, as long as you engage people, you want them to believe in you, you want them to believe in your product, you want them to believe in what you do and what you sell. So you will want them to own your activity for you. Okay. And trust me, if you can get a few customers to believe in you, they become repeat customers, they become repeat clients, and they will definitely sell you. A satisfied customer will always want to refer his friends. Okay. So that's where PR comes in. So make sure that everyone that you have to deal with is satisfied. Yeah.
Okay, so Tony Abelu.
I wish you had also joined and mentioned even churches themselves.
Yeah, right.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
In what area?
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Now that we're worrying about even the state of the economy, and where prosperity is now the gospel rather than the gospel, the churches need to manage their brand. Are they selling God? Are they selling Christ? Or are they selling themselves?
So that's to say that everything you do needs...
Right. And something he also said, which I think we need to underscore, even a not-for-profit organization, an NGO needs PR. So you discover that, like I said, there's a need to communicate. Every business needs to communicate. And like we say in advertising, a business without even any communication, and I'm sure it's good that I'm looking into your eyes. Okay. It's like winking at a beautiful girl in the dark. Okay.
She doesn't get to see the wings.
You stand the risk of not getting noticed.
Is lost. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
So there's a need for everyone to communicate.
Yeah.
Is PR expensive?
Right.
Well, it depends on the approach. In my own opinion, PR is something that you can evolve. Okay. Unlike advertising, that you have to engage a third party, you have to find an off-taker for your a platform to advertise. PR is something you can actually gradually build according to your budget. So what most organizations do is set a certain percentage of their profits for PR activities. So that way it's easier for them to grow as the organization is growing. So for instance, they make ¡1 million naira, and out of that ¡1 million naira, 100,000, that's 10%, is set out for PR. So if they grow to 10 million, that means that can also grow to 1 million, like that. So in as much as it could, PR activities can go up as much as the billions, but for small entities, you can actually evolve your PR activity as per your size.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe to answer that, when I did look at volume, way back when I did some study on PR as business, in 2006, the volume of PR then was worth 2 billion naira. 2006. And you can imagine what it is now.
Is that globally or
No,
in Nigeria?
We're looking at Nigeria. I'm looking at Nigerian study. A 2 billion. And that's why he was being conservative by telling you in the billions. So it is in the billions. And now you can, of course, scale it. And it could be cheaper because of the digital age we're in. Because digital communication is more suited for PR than anything else.
Exactly.
Because right now, you don't even need typing letters, going from place to place to send newsletters. With your website, you can put your letters. From a press release is sent right to every address that you have globally. And therefore, at what cost? All you need is your data for all it is worth. And today you can send your messages on Instagram, Facebook, and so on, which means you can do a lot of marketing and PR communication in the digital age, much more sophisticatedly and to a wider audience. And these days, unlike in the past, you now get response and feedbacks, which we're not getting then. Before. Now, the customer speaks to you almost immediately, to the brand. And that's why some of the things you teach people in terms of PR and in the digital age is that you must also be ethical and be very up and about and conscious of your image on your digital edge, where you're communicating with the people. And you must be fast in your response, because the digital age demands faster response time from the organization as the clients and the publics are having greater demands on organizations and institutions.
Okay. We're in a COVID-19 pandemic. How has that affected the business of PR? In terms of patronage, how do other firms patronize you now or in the COVID-19 era?
Yeah, the fact is, the COVID pandemic has more or less like given us a 30-year leap.
Really?
Yeah. So we're doing today what we're supposed to be doing in 30 years' time. So if PR has grown this much from 2 billion to what it is today, ebbing towards the trillions, then you could imagine what it could, the size it could be in 30 years' time. And that's where COVID has taken us. So now with COVID, we can see that we can actually get into people's homes. We can, in fact, it gives us more opportunities to reach out to people, especially during the lockdown.
Okay.
A lot of organizations came out to touch people, to impact people with food items, drugs, relief materials and stuff like that. All those were, PR stunts to get the people to buy the loyalty of the people to their brand.
Okay.
And also, it's an opportunity to also use what they have to actually get more reach. Say, for instance, companies that are into beverages were able to get good deals to sell more because the people were now at home.
Okay.
So consumption for these products
went
higher, over the roof, right? So people that are into fast meals, like 5-minute meals and stuff like that, could actually sell a lot more because now as people are at home, they don't eat 3 square meals anymore. They're eating 5 square meals, 7 square meals
a day.
So all that was happening during the COVID, and so it was more like trying to adopt a sales maximization strategy, selling more, reducing their profits, and then selling more in quantity. And yeah, a lot of companies even made more money during the COVID than before the COVID, because it was a big opportunity for so many companies, and for those that needed that period to actually bring a complete overhaul to their public image, it was a big opportunity for them. And today, everybody's singing praises here and there.
Wow. So I think the PR sector was one of the lucky ones to have been possibly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Just by default. I said by default. It wasn't intended. Okay. But there we were. It's like logistics. Logistics that benefited immensely.
Okay.
Immensely. It was a massive market.
COVID. And it's like today, even broadcasting can even benefit from it if it so desires. Everybody's on Zoom. In fact, before I came here, I was streaming an interview to Canada. And that's what also took part of my time.
Okay, I didn't want to say you came late, but you just made them know.
No, but in truth, now these days, you discover that COVID created opportunities as much as it created losses. Remember that now we're going off shelf, off mortar and brick shops into e-commerce.
Okay.
And that's where PR is just going to do a lot of work. And today you need to communicate your brand, your things, online rather than, offline and off the shelf. And so PRO now is in a better position to reposition itself in terms of public communications. And one hopes, you see, even the benefit is that the larger society ought to know what is PR. PR is not, I don't know whether you, in your conversations, you dealt, because there's the permanent myth in Nigeria. PR is giving bribe. And that is the last thing about public relations.
Okay, so that's another wrong perception.
Is it?
Because we talked about the perception.
You call it wrong perception. Just wrong definition.
Okay.
It's not even a perception. It's a wrong definition. And so it is not about that. And so PR now is in a position where everybody needs to benefit. Here we are. Take like even the story that is Boko Haram. I don't know if you ever saw something online. A university lecturer in Othman Danfodio University in Sokoto delivered a lecture on I am a bandit. He's been doing a survey and study for years. I have it, and I was amazed. And of course, I was conversing with my friend who is a student in Othman Danfodio in Sokoto. So I discovered that there are lots of things even the government should communicate, but doesn't communicate. What are its challenges? What are its difficulties? Look, it took us years even to understand. Was it people from Libya? Is it someone from Mali? Where are they coming from? Are they not
communicating the key things you should communicate?
Not that. Okay, look at what Lai Mohammed, who forever is I don't know, garrulous about whatever it was.
Okay, let's not get political about this and begin to describe people in languages that are not palatable.
Wait a minute. You see, he now said the reason the Nigeria is getting a bad image is media publicity. Is the way Nigerians are reporting that is creating, because that's the way we're talking about.
So in essence, what you're saying is the government needs a better PR management.
PR and perception management. PR and perception management. They're important distinctions. Okay. And they need themselves to know that they need to communicate with the people. It's like, I mean, even here, look, okay, we're told you must get vaccinated. Where was the communication? Is it an order, or is it there supposed to be communication in Edo State? So those are the issues, because if they know what public relations is, they ought to have engaged the public a longer time. And I've always regarded the example of Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore as a fine example of public communication and PR. Before you set up a policy, 2-3 years or so ahead, you begin to engage the people till they get a buy-in. That's how you do brand imaging. That's how you do perception management. That's how you get brand loyalty. And it takes time. It's not a magic thing. It's not you wish it and it becomes. So when you now begin to create a policy, you ought to graduate the people into a knowledge, into a habit, into an attitude, into a mind thing. Because remember that advertising and PR is a subliminal communication. You are really talking to their subconscious. And experts like Bernard Lee and all those people who are experts in this business have talked so much about social psychology and how much you can engage the public.
So it's a lot deeper than people understand.
Oh, by far, by far.
Okay. Now, I haven't talked about the doors opened to PR in Nigeria by COVID-19 and some other things like technology. There must be challenges. What are those challenges?
Yeah, one of the challenges for PR, like I mentioned earlier, is the issue of buying. A lot of companies, at the risk of repeating myself, they still want to focus on making the money. Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people, and that's a big market. That's a huge market to sell. And we get so lost in selling, that is in advertising, and forget to build trust in our products. So the products, there were cell phones, there were phone manufacturing companies that had it wrong in this way. When telecommunications came to Nigeria initially, there were phone manufacturing companies that were all about selling and selling and selling and selling, and never took the time to actually build the trust of people in their brand. But today, there is shadow. Some of them are dead and gone. Some of them are trying to struggle to revamp their identity, and stuff like that. That's one mistake that companies make. Focusing more on pushing their products out there because they see that people are buying, so they want to push more into the market. It's fine. But then while you're pushing more into the market, you go behind the people to begin to show them that, look, as you're consuming our product, we are here for you. We are here to support you. PR is about building trust. Trust not just in your product, but trust in yourself, in your identity. That's why companies like Coca-Cola can be here since 18-something. Because they invest a lot. If there's any company that has gone through a lot of image-damaging advertisements, I'm not sure there's anyone like Coca-Cola.
And yet they've been able to
But they have been able to navigate it. How do they do it? They manage the people's perception of them, especially the end consumers.
Now, I said that to ask you this. Haven't gone through a lot of crisis as an organization or as an individual. Now, how do you now convince, if you are the person to provide a PR service, that there is still hope? This image can still be clean. You can still win the trust of the people. Now, how do you do that convincing?
How do you do that convincing? Just before I come to that, I just wanted to add something to what my colleague just said. Take like you want to eat, you go and ask for one of these food you eat that looks like spaghetti, but it's not spaghetti. People always say, give me Indomie, give me Indomie. But there is all noodles. There is Mimi.
There are other brands who
other brands. But how
noodles.
come it's all? And Indomie is a brand of Dufil.
Dufil.
Okay.
Dufil is the company that makes.
People don't even know Dufil.
But nobody don't know Dufil. But you know Indomie. And Indomie seems to be the face of everything that looks like noodles.
Okay.
Actually, it's noodles you want to eat, but it's always Indomie you talk about. That's. Or you go, I want tea. Then when you bring Lipton, they say no, it's
Okay.
Or back in the days it was Pepsodent. Every toothpaste was Pepsodent there.
Okay, so matching a particular product with a brand name and just calling every product that is similar with the brand name.
It means that fellow has handled the reputation, handled perception, and handled brand loyalty. So you take the market and become the market leader. So if you want to now dip into the question you asked, you must do research.
Okay.
An advertiser or a public relations man, just like a lawyer, is an educated man.
Okay.
You do research every day on every brand, on every product, and every sector of the economy. You must be up to date, so that if I want to market anything to you, I should go back to the books and be able to say, this is where it's at.
Okay.
These are the challenges, these are the opportunities. If I come to you and lay it flat on the table, statistically driven, and that's why psychography is one of the important things you do. Measurement is what you do in PR. So if you measure both attitude, product, demand, whatever it is in the marketplace, you look at the competition, you're able to tell the client, these are the things you have. And if I show you the opportunities, and of course, dangle something, this is the money you can make. Okay. Because who doesn't like the smell of the tail? So when you hear that this is the money that you are likely to make, of course, that this can make you next to Dangote, you will jump and become my client.
Exactly.
All right. Now, on the final notes, what does the absence of PR do to businesses? The absence of PR, whether in good time or in bad time, what does it do to the business?
I will just give it to you graphically.
Okay.
If you go around Benin, as you go around many cities in this country, you see signboards. Go in another 3-4 years, it's another signboard that is there. What happened? It's what happened. That's when you begin to know why there was no PR and no advertising and no marketing communication. The fellow went on there and now shifted away. So you need to have that signboard all the time. Like you gave the example of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has been going round the world, and even Pepsi attempted, both in advertising and in marketing.
Can we just hold on the name calling, because you have to provide some money here for advertising you do for them. Yes.
No, but you can't talk about PR without the brand mentioning. Okay. Are we just going to be talking principle, no examples, nothing that people will relate to? You're going to relate to some product. Okay. So if they survive and they go around and they are able to make themselves, that is what good PR means. And if you are not there, of course you go off the market. And once you go off the market, you go off people's memory. And when an economy is more challenging, that's one of the things you are taught and people should do. That is the time companies should not abandon advertising. You must stay. That's not the time to stop communicating with your public. In good and the bad times, if you may use your language, in the good and the bad time, you must be visible.
When sales are up, when sales are down.
Yes, no matter what, you must be there. Because once you are not there, the human memory is so short, they will just forget you and go to something else new and something happening. And in Nigeria, people like the happening things.
All right.
So innovation is something that you must constantly do, and the PR person helps you
to innovate. Innovation is the challenge that we provide. Innovation is the idea. Research and product development is what we also offer. Then you, the organization, must also be involved in this process. It's a two-way thing, because there's a client agency approach towards any brand building.
Okay. Now, if I'm to scout for a PR firm, what are the things I should be searching for? Or even if a PR firm comes to me as a business owner, what are those things that I should be looking out for?
Yeah, PR is about managing image. And so you will want to get a firm that has an identity of their own. You want a firm that has qualified people on their profile, people that have a background in and have a history of helping organizations navigate their way through all the PR drama. So you don't just pick a firm because they look good on the front end. You pick a firm because they have what it takes to deliver on what you need to achieve. Because if you don't have the right PR firm managing your PR activities, you may end up doing more damage, and then you have to bring another PR firm to help you, bring you from the negative to the zero again, and then start building from there. So you need to be everyone needs to be very strategic. Organizations, companies, enterprises need to be very strategic in selecting who manages them, who manages their PR activities, and what are they proposing, what's the proposition, what value are they bringing to the table. And like I said, they should be able to dangle some good carrots in front of you. In
front of you. Okay. I'm going to ask you this before we go. When you have two PR experts, it's hard to just let them go like that. Now, by the time you know of a reputable PR firm, and perhaps you're thinking, when they give me the bill, it's going to be very, very huge. You see these things the bank do. They'll be left from you coming to them to say, I want to open an account, to going to the streets to say you can open an account and even have zero balance. Is it possible for PR firms to have such a structure that it doesn't look like it's a very, very expensive project to embark upon? It's something even a small business could do.
I will try some composite answer. One is that what can make up a good PR firm? You need practically every discipline you can imagine. You need law, you need psychology, you need physics, you need biochemistry, you need mathematics, you need statistics, you need philosophy, you need English and literature. Everybody can come in because there's a place you can use them in the communication mix.
Okay.
Right? Fine. So by the time you assemble that kind of persons, and you are going to offer a service, we also will give you from that same mix someone who can do a cash flow projection. And you need that kind of understanding and do an equity proposition that can show you that, look, if we gave you this, even if we're going to ask you to pay 10 million, there is a 10 million investment, and that 10 million should give you 100 million. Nobody is ever going to come to you and say, pay me 10 million and take it off you. I mean, out of conscience and out of a good profession, you don't want to eat somebody's money. You want to call that money investment. And so you manage that money in a proper way that is invested throughout all the entire communication mix. Whatever channels, whatever way you want to do, you will use everybody you can. And you've got the personnel. And so you give the best of advice to the individual. And when you give the best of advice, the bottom line is every expenditure from the client, no matter how much it is, it could be even as small as 10,000.
Okay. So there's room. There's
absolutely.
Some of the budgets are pocket friendly.
Of course, some of them are pocket friendly. And I don't know whether, if I'm going to propose 100 million, in those days when First Bank was out, most of the budget that some of the companies were taking was about 100 million. So what's the 100 million to a bank? Nothing.
Okay, so depending on your size.
It depends on your size and depending on your need and the kind of communication you want to. He was given an example of a contract of 200 million, but of course you have to break it down. Out of the 200 million, how many of them have money? But how many are you talking to? But out of that 200 million, quite a size, have the money you want to talk to. How do you reach out to Medigudi? How do you reach out to Sokoto? How do you reach out to Bayelsa? How are you going to reach out to Lagos, Ibadan, Benin, Onitsha? How are you going to make that communication? You know what it is to do billboards right through this country? How much is it? That's not a small budget. Or you see Globe throwing their advert even on CNN and so on. I mean, how much is it? It costs a lot of dollars. So most of these things are not cheap. But then you do it budget size, budget friendly, and at least something that brings back equity. Equity returns. There must be a return on investment.
Okay, return on investment. I think that's one thing that the business person wants to hear. Once you say, I can do PR for you, what do I gain? They want to hear that part. Thank you very much, Tony Amachuni, for coming. And I also have Tony Abulu. So I've been with two Tonys today.
No, so you can choose.
All right, to you who's been wondering how the big business have been able to keep themselves in your mind, that even when you sleep and you want to do a particular thing, you just think, oh, this company, that company, and you want to be like that. Well, some of them have the PR experts to thank for them, and they just made us understand that there is a budget for everyone. So look out today if you want to expand your business, if you want to keep the perception good and clean in the mind of those who patronize you and also welcome others. You should begin to think PR today. That's the way the world is going, and that's the way to have your business living even beyond you. My name is Blessing Aichi, and until next week, I ask that you stay safe. Bye.